Guys, I gotta be transparent. It was very difficult for me to rank this first uniform so low. I mean, it's worn by an elite European Presidential Guard unit that has a storied history in combat. In addition, the uniform's handmade and it's got a lot of historical significance built right into it. All that being said, the way it's put together, the overall look of the uniform of the Greek Evrones, there's just something off about it. Again, the individual components are cool. That Pharaon cap in red with that tassel, overall looks good. The hand-sewn formeli, this thing is a work of art. Literally, every one of these are handmade, and if you look into the detail, you can actually see the rank of the soldier. But what I love about this, I mean, this is thousands and thousands of stitches. As a guy that owned a custom clothier, I get the detail and the attention that goes into making something like this. And let's talk about that fustanella. Made from 30 yards of fabric, this thing has 400 pleats in it, each pleat representing a year under the Ottoman Empire. The idea is you wear this and you remember that you've got to protect Greek sovereignty. And the Sriracha shoes, made to be a heavy footwear, 3 kilograms with 60 tacks in each one of them to simulate the sound of combat. I also love the fact that they carry an M1 Garand. If you're familiar with the history on this weapon, classic American weapon that has seen worldwide service and is very accurate to fire. Unfortunately, this uniform is an example of putting all of these great things together and it just doesn't look right. In addition, we got a lot of practicality issues. First up, let's talk about the formeli. So that tassel is overly long and it gets in the way. I'm reading reports about guys, this is all getting tangled up. It is a pain in the butt to wear. As again, a former military man, I can tell you that dress uniforms, they may look good, but you want them also to function. And that, yeah, it's a small thing, but they could have made it half as long. Next up, the Yopotis shirt. It looks like it's coming out of the 1970s. Way too much flare, way too much excess fabric. That is going to get in the way. I get it. It's nice, white, signals the purity of the intentions, but it just from a practical standpoint, white and just all over that excess material, yeah, a bad combination. And now let's talk about those Zarusia shoes. So first up, the pom-pom. It just doesn't look good. I know I've read the stories, oh, it kept their feet warm. Really? Why are you wearing it also in the summer? And it just doesn't look efficient or effective. Oh, you can hide a knife in this. Why not actually put blades out there? That would actually look really cool if they actually had blades instead of the pom-pom. And the tacks, those nails on the bottom. I get that you want to have that sound, but when it comes to a practicality of these guys are actually climbing up Mount Acropolis, my understanding, and they're raising and lowering the flag. I was watching these guys march and move. They aren't getting any traction with these shoes. These things are going to slip all over the place. I'm sure there have been incidents of guys falling and hurting themselves. So from a practicality perspective, these shoes are really bad. So for all those reasons, when it comes to the uniform of the Greek Evrones, and I'm sorry my Greek friends, but I got to put them in the FUBAR category. Now this next military unit was founded in 1814 by Victor Emmanuel I, the Duke of Savoy and King of Sardinia. Now what's interesting about these guys is they were formed almost 50 years before the founding of their country, and they were named after a particular type of rifle. Now right here, I've got a long rifle. It's got a 16-inch barrel. If you were to shorten this, let's say go with a 14-inch barrel, as many of you guys know, that would be called a carbine. That being said, back in the day, some of those long rifles would go out to 54 to 70 inches. Try firing that from top of a horse. Very difficult and, just really unwieldy. So they would shorten the rifle. What does that do? It actually lowers in general the velocity of the round that's going out, and it makes it a little bit less accurate. But that being said, it'd be much more effective when you're on horseback, or if you want to simply be able to quickly lift up the rifle and fire in a close proximity. And now that you know what a carbine is, let me introduce you to the next unit, the Italian Carabinieri. Now the Carabinieri is very unique in that they served both as military units and police units within Italy. Now the Carabinieri was, as I indicated, named after the carbine. It was a rifle that was carried on horseback, and initially these soldiers were brought in to support basically the king, the monarchy. They were his personal guard. Now you may be wondering, why does a king need a personal guard, especially if you've got an army? Well, because the army isn't always going to be loyal. It has its own politics and the generals, and there may be other outside influence. When you got a personal guard, even if it's just simply 100 soldiers, think about that. You've got 100 people that are loyal to you. They're not going to question you. You don't need to ask any permission. If you need to make something happen, you've got 100 armed men ready to make something happen. And you'd be surprised with small groups how powerful they can be when they have a purpose or if they have a king or leader to defend. Now, the Carabinieri uniforms we're going to be talking about today are their ceremonial uniforms. And I have to say that they are some of the best looking that I have ever seen. I love their use of color. Now, I've seen different reports. Some people say the uniforms are black, very dark blue. I'm going to go with midnight blue because it looks black. And in general, I think that they would probably go with blue. You notice that they've also got right here silver lining and silver decorations, basically braiding that we've got throughout other parts of the uniform. They also make use of the color red. When mixed with blue or black, by the way, is going to be just a really stark contrast. And I think they don't overdo it. And just overall, their uniforms are on point, they fit well, and they look good. In addition, let's talk about that bicorn hat. Now, those of you guys that know your hats, you understand the bicorn came from the tricorn hat, and it really, we see pictures of Napoleon wearing something like this, made it really popular, but it did fade out probably about, 1910, 1920, definitely whenever the First World War came around. But here's the thing, the Carabinieri, they wore that type of hat into World War I, and they were very proud. They were also called, basically, I think the airplane heads or something like that, but other soldiers. But they didn't care. They have stuck with, and they've brought something. I just love the fact that they didn't give up on this hat, and it's really one of the most distinctive features of their ceremonial uniforms. Another part of the Carabinieri uniform that I absolutely love is they still use capes. So technically, we did as well in the United States Marine Corps, but I have never actually met a Marine Corps officer that has a cape. I bought one after the fact, just simply because I think they're cool. But to see guys actually wearing capes with their uniforms in parade, your parade uniforms is just amazing. And I love seeing something that was historically used, brought in, and as a whole, it just fits. It makes the combination look good. Capes in general, I may have to create a whole video. In fact, let me know down in the comments if you want to see a video on capes. But capes fell out simply because they used too much material. But when it comes to functionality, especially when riding a horse and being able to quickly access your weapons, capes are amazing. And they actually do a decent job of keeping you warm. I also got to give them high marks on their use of a sidearm. So they're Italian, makes sense. They would carry the Beretta 92, beautiful Italian-made weapon that I also carried when I was in the United States Marine Corps. We had the M9 version, basically the same thing. Very beautiful. I just simply think it is reliable, it's accurate, and it's cool to see them actually use the same weapon that I did. Now, I know some people are going to say, hey, they served Mussolini, they actually oppressed their own people, but when you look at the unit as a whole, you look at actually they brought down Mussolini as well. So a lot of interesting story. When I read the history on these guys, I was very impressed. Rating their uniforms though, guys, I got to put them in the highest category, high speed, low drag, just a really cool historic uniform that really came well together and to this day looks amazing. Now for this next set of Royal Guards, we're going to the other side of the world and we're going back to 1469. The Joseon dynasty is when these guards first started guarding the gates of the royal palace. In modern times, these guards still protect the royal gates, and what's interesting about them is they also handle crowd traffic, and they're expected to be able to play an instrument. Now, what's interesting is these royal guards do not carry modern firearms. In fact, they rely on old school, weapons that they've been using for hundreds of years. So you'll see them actually be able to use spears, scimitars. If you're familiar with this weapon, it's basically going to have a long curved blade at the end of a pole. It can also be a sword. But basically, these guys put on displays of them using the weapons. And you can tell that these guys know what they're doing. So gents, who am I talking about? The South Korean Royal Guards. Now, initially, I have to admit, when I saw these uniforms, I thought, that's a bunch of show. Then I saw them move in the uniforms. And that's what I like. There's a lot of good video footage of these guys actually using the weapons, actually putting on displays of how they would move. And to see these guys move fluidly, to have no constriction, all of a sudden you realize this is a very functional uniform. Actually, you realize South Korea gets some pretty cold weather. Actually, this makes a lot of sense to wear that clothing like it. The hat, actually, okay, in the sun, it may, look heavy, it may look a little bit overburdensome, but the hat actually does a really good job. Yes, it's got those and the feathers actually are pretty cool. When I started looking at the overall way that this is all put together, this one really worked. Now, a lot of people not familiar with ancient military strategy and doctrine may wonder, why would you use such bright colors, especially on the battlefield or with military units? Doesn't that make you easy to spot? Nowadays we think of camouflage and we have communications via, electronic devices, but it used to, back in the day, the way people communicated was visually, because you couldn't really hear anything on the battlefield. You got all this craziness going on. So it helped whenever, hey, I can see that if I'm going to be a foot soldier, I'm in red, I'm sticking with my guys. This is my unit. This is the side I should be on. If officers are in blue, I know who to listen to, who's going to be directing traffic. And if I'm a commander, from a distance, from a mile away, I'm able to spot where people are at and be able to see where the line's at. So colors were very useful in being able to determine the order of battle. And from what I was able to piece together again with video, pictures, it looks like their footwear is on point. For to be able to move in the way that they were able to with those weapons, you have to say they've got great traction on the boots, and overall, they're probably decently comfortable. So I have to give these guys, I'm going to put them in category 2, pretty friggin' awesome. Whether you're using an electric, safety, or cartridge razor, consider using an aftershave balm. Applying this after you shave helps to cool the skin and prevent redness. Now, gents, the grooming products you see in today's video brought to you by Vitaman. And instead of me telling you how awesome they are, how about I put a link down in the description of today's video so you can try them for free. Seriously, gents, use that link in the description to grab a sample kit over at Vitaman for free. Now, this next uniform is a sub-uniform of one of the most famous units in the world. Founded in 1831, as soon as I say it, you guys are going to know it. It allowed the French to be able to recruit foreign nationals. Gents, the unit I'm talking about is the French Foreign Legion, and they're highly trained legionnaires. Now, for people that haven't served in the military, they may not know how many different uniforms a single unit can have at a particular point in time. And understand, it seems like every 10 to 15 years they change up the uniforms. But when I was in the Marine Corps, we had our camis. And then if you were in a flight unit, you had, you could wear your flight suit. You also had your dress A's, and this is what you wore whenever you're checking into a unit. You had your Charlies, which you would wear, if you're on a recruiting station, and you had the dress blues, which were our most famous uniform. But right there, you could have up to 5 different uniforms at one point in your career. Now, the French Foreign Legion is no different, and they've got their history and they've got their particular units. And the one I want to talk about today are known as the Pioneers. So you go back to the 18th century, you had a particular engineering unit that carried axes, were protected by leather, had specialty gloves, and they would go into combat to basically disassemble, anytime that you're attacking an enemy, they would set up defenses. You would send in your engineers to, depending on what time in history, to either blow up, to tear down, to be able to make room for the soldiers that are going to come in and want to be quickly able to get through and not get caught in entanglements and then, end up getting massacred. You don't want that. So you would send in your engineers. Some of the, my brother actually was started off as an engineer in the Army, and they would teach these guys how to use, different explosives nowadays, but so you can clear out space so the main unit can make their way through. So based off that description, you could imagine the Pioneers, their engineering unit, these were some of the bravest men because they were going in front, top tip of the spear. They're probably going in at night to be able to disassemble, to be able to break things down, and they probably had a high casualty rate. So the people that are part of this unit have a storied history, are very proud of where they come from, and it's really cool that they've got their own uniform. All right, guys, so as you can see, a very distinctive uniform. Let's break down its parts. So first up, the beard. Notice that these guys don't have to shave like the rest of the Foreign Legion. Why? So if you're part of this unit, the beard is a historic symbol of a man that has been on the front lines and can do as he pleases, because who knows how long he has to live. And this is something actually you see in a number of different services. When I was in the Marine Corps, we did have to shave still in combat, but a lot of other services I know especially special forces, allow you to basically grow the beard, do whatever you want. This is your chance to be able to enjoy something that you haven't been able to enjoy in your career because you're putting yourself in a very dangerous situation. Next up, let's talk about those axes. When you see these guys, you might think a bunch of French lumberjacks going off to a pancake eating contest. No, that's not what's happening here. The axes symbolize their ability to tear things down. And they traditionally did use axes at a time when you got all these wooden obstacles and you would be able to go in there and just tear stuff up while you're getting shot at. I mean, a pretty cool, I think, history with the axe here. Next up, the white gauntlet gloves. Very high gloves, thick leather to protect the hands because you are tearing through things. There's probably going to be barbed wire, Constantino wire. You have to be able to handle things and tear things apart quickly. Next up, let's talk about those leather aprons. This was armor. Many of you guys know the history of leather. It was boiled, used, and layered in many ways to be able to provide armor. Now, it's not going to be able to stop a round going through, but it will possibly be able to stop if you had a cannonball land by and all of a sudden hit some wood. You got, shrapnel, just pieces of wood flying around. It may be able to stop some of that. A glancing blow from a weapon, it may be able to, turn it so all of a sudden you just have a bruise versus actually getting slashed. So it could provide some protection, and that's historically why they still wear it. So where am I going to rank the Pioneers? Overall, I really like the French Foreign Legion and their look. Their hats are iconic, but I'm going to have to put this uniform in General Officer Bright idea. I mean, I get the idea and it sounded really good probably on paper, but I bet the guys wearing, especially those leather aprons and those gloves, they're like, you know what? I mean, this is cool. I love the history with this, but on a hot day, incredibly uncomfortable. The beards I think are cool, and the axes I would keep. I don't think they really need those leather aprons. It just seems overkill. I mean, you could add so many other things to this. It just seemed like, yeah, keep the axes, keep the beards, but lose the leather aprons and those over heavy gloves. It's just, yeah, I don't think it really adds much to the look. Now for this next set of presidential guards, we're heading to the tropics. And very interestingly enough, this presidential unit is made up from all of the armed forces that serve in this country's military. They also carry the AK-101, which is a very interesting weapon. So the idea was to combine the reliability of the AK-47 with the rounds and the accuracy of what we see in the M16's 5.56. So it is basically, it looks like an AK-47, but it carries 5.56 rounds NATO. So what unit am I talking about? Fiji's Presidential Guards. Now, based out of Suva, these guys are going to do a daily changing of the guard ceremony. So if you're ever in Fiji, you can go check them out, go watch them. And during this ceremony, you'll be able to see them basically transition from one unit to another. Now, this uniform is very recognizable by the use of the traditional Fijian sulu. In addition, the red color of the blouse that they're wearing. And yes, military terms, even men wear blouses. That's what we call the shirts. Now, gents, I'll be honest. I wanted to try to like this uniform, but I just can't. It seems like they piece some things together. They try to keep some history, but they could do a better job. And hopefully they're able to improve on this. But let's start with that sulu. First up, if you're going to go traditional, what's up with the bottom of it? Just having that slash in there, it looks sloppy. I really also don't like how they paired it with sandals. I get it, it's hot. But as a military person, you want functionality. You want, hey, if we actually are carrying weapons, which it looked like they're carrying loaded weapons with, bayonets on them, you're going to want to be able to move. You're going to want to be able to run. You never know when the situation is going to call. And I do think proper boots or footwear that can give you traction, footwear that's going to better protect the foot is going to be called for. Even in the tropics, there are tropical weights and tropical type of boots that you can wear, I think would be totally fine. Let's also talk about those shirts. I don't think that they need to go. Everything I saw was longer sleeve. I never saw any short sleeve. That bright red color isn't actually bad. I like how they brought in the epaulets, but I did think that they could go with something that's short sleeve and it would actually look better with that overall combination. Watching the video of these guys drill, they know what they're doing. When they've spent some time on the grinder. But when it comes to the overall look of the uniforms, I think that they can very much improve here. So I'm going to put them into the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Basically, what the... All right, Jen, so what'd you think of my opinions? Who do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear which other uniforms you would love to see. And guys, if you want to watch another video where I rank military uniforms, especially a lot of American uniforms, this is the video you're going to want to check out. I made it a while back. It's a great one. And yeah, let me know in the comments and I will look to make another one like this if you ask.